You've punted on Freiermuth, you've punted on Dortch, and you have Chiefs. I don't think this is a terrible lineup. Maybe it is. This is usually where Tambo comes in and is like, Mayo, you're an idiot, but he's not here, so I can play the shittiest lineups I want.
Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings. The Week 12 main slate, DraftKings Picks, and preview. If you have not got your spot reserved in the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League for Week 12, best do that now. There are fewer than 400 spots remaining. The link is down in the description right now. I know it's the holiday season. You might have forgot to do some things. Like I forgot there's a Black Friday game, and I just opened up my phone. I was like, oh yeah, there's football later today. This is going to be great. So I'll have the update on Saturday evening for updated ownerships and everything like that. And of course, you can always go to runthesims.com to get all of that information as well. Code Mayo to get the discount, or you can just use the prop sniper over there. If you're saying, you know what? I'm good with DraftKings. I know who's going to be owned. I know how to build lineups, but I need some help with the props. The prop sniper, absolute hot fire on Thanksgiving. Hopefully, it translates through to Black Friday as well. And that's a much cheaper product, and Code Mayo will still get you 10% off. Joining me on the line, smash a like and sub to the channel while you're here, is not Tambo, because Tambo will be back next week in studio doing the giveaways. It's Chris Meaney from FTN. What's up, dude?
What's going on? Yeah, we got. I was actually, as you were saying about your contest, I was getting in, so it's still my favorite contest out at DraftKings. Got to make sure I get my 3 entries in there, and Black Friday Tim Boyle experience starts tonight. Fired up.
Tim Boyle overs, Mostert overs. What a time to be alive.
Some piss poor quarterback play this year, man, and this just adds to it, right? We've seen, I think, roughly 65 different quarterbacks so far this season, and we're into week 12 now, and I'm sure we'll see a few more awful backups.
Oh yeah, there's still room for this to go to the bottom of the well.
It's gonna get worse, people. It's gonna get worse.
So
it's good times. I'm here for it.
Yeah, we were gonna film this in studio yesterday, but we decided to punt that off and just have a few beers and watch football instead, and do it this morning after the games have concluded, so we can talk about them a little bit. Is Dallas an unstoppable train, or can they just beat the crap out of shitty teams?
They can definitely beat the crap out of shitty teams, right? Their 8 or 9 wins this season. The 8 wins have been against some brutal football teams. I think most of them have 3 or 4 wins each. But I was looking at Dak's numbers a little bit more, and I know he won't be in the MVP conversation because the defense is so good and they just beat up on these teams. But he is like number 1 in QBR against the blitz, against a lot of different statistics, single coverage. He is really having a great season. And over the past couple of weeks, he's been arguably the best quarterback in football. But it's just hard to tell like how great he really is when they just beat up on these brutal squads. So we'll see what happens. Dallas is like Miami to me. And I know a lot of people talk about this. You've talked about it, and Tim as well. We had this conversation yesterday when we were watching the football games on Thanksgiving, is just let's see if they can beat a good football team. So at the end of the season, they're going to play Detroit. They're going to play Philly again. I think that they have a matchup against Buffalo. So they have some tougher opponents coming up. But I know it's hard to tell how good they are. If they play San Fran again in the playoffs, I think that they're just going to get smacked in the mouth. Like that's a team that I don't think they can beat.
Yeah, what they need to happen is Philly to get the 1 seed, them to get the 5 seed, and then hope that the only upset in the first round of the playoffs is them over whatever crappy team from the NFC South ends up winning.
Yeah. The Saints or the Falcons, right?
Or the Bucks.
Tim thinks the Falcons are good. I don't think they're good. Or the Bucks for sure. Like
you got to
definitely alive.
You got to listen to the insanity in person yesterday with watching these games with Cust. Why does he like Atlanta so much?
I have no idea why he likes Atlanta so much. He says they have a lot of skilled players, and I get it. They do. Like they have a nice, exciting running back in Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. Like they've spent their last 3 drafts in the first round spent on skilled players. So they have some appealing pieces on offense, and defense, I guess, is okay. Everybody talks about the offensive line being underrated, but how can everybody in football talk about an offensive line being underrated when it's all anybody talks about? So it's not even underrated at all. It's just okay. It's a good line. The head coach is pathetic in Arthur Smith, and the quarterback play is brutal. Like the fact that they had to go to Heineke, who was also awful, and now they're going back to Desmond Ridder. Is just it's not good. So I'm if I would have ranked the three teams, I would put the Bucks actually ahead of the Falcons. I would say the Saints, based on their defense alone, are among the leaders in quarterback completion percentage against. Like, they do have a good defense, top 10 last year. Don't have to do a whole lot offensively to win football games, because really they haven't scored a lot of points, and they're still sitting there at first in the division. And then I would go the Bucks. Actually, I think the Falcons have a better defense than the Bucks, but Baker's played some good football, and I really do like Godwin, and Kate Otton's up and coming, and Mike Evans had a really good season as well, and Rashad White's starting to trend up. So I don't think it really matters. I know the Cowboys usually get upset, in the playoffs, or they lose that big game at home, but I would be picking them on the road to play to win whoever they play in that division.
Oh, of course. I don't think that anyone's going to be. But look, we just watched Green Bay beat the crap out of Detroit. That is one thing Cuss was on, that although he picked Detroit to win by like 1,000,000 points anyway, but that their defense is so bad they can kind of lose to anyone. And everyone's like, no, their defense is fine. Their defense is fine. We have players on their defense that we know. It's like, no, Jordan Love lit them up.
Yeah, their defense is not good. It's funny, Cuss was right about that, and he did say that Detroit would win the game, and then I think within 10 minutes he called it over. And immediately I was thinking, wow, I might have to live bet the Lions here, because they did this the previous week against the Bears, and it looked like it was over, and they came back, and they made a bit of a run. But yeah, I actually have some concerns about Detroit. I think offensively they can go toe-to-toe with anybody in the NFC, especially if that game is at home in the Dome, which it does look like they will have their first matchup at home. I still think there's a slim possibility of the 1 seed if the Eagles trip up here in these next few games. But defensively, they have some big time issues. They're giving up a lot of plays. They're among the leaders in big explosive plays in the secondary, yards allowed to wide receivers. The fact that Love went in there and lit them up, the fact that the Bears and Justin Fields went in there and lit them up too. And Fields hasn't had a lot of fantastic games. That was his first one off the injury. So the schedule is not great either. The rest of the way, we're not going to get a great feel if this defense kind of figures it out until maybe that final game against Dallas, which may be a preview of something that we see later on in the playoffs. But out of all the teams that are sitting comfy in the playoffs right now, I think that may be the one I'm most concerned about at the moment, the Lions.
And they still have 2 games against Minnesota as well. Like, if all of a sudden Minnesota can knock them off in both those games, the division's up for grabs.
I think that if the Vikings won last week, that would be the big talking point this week after, another loss here for the Lions. But yeah, the 2 games, I think they play 2 of the last 3 weeks, right? They play each other. So if Minnesota can figure that one out, they can win this week. They're 3.5-point favorites against the Bears. No Justin Jefferson. So it's very possible that they can take that spot, but I'd still think that it's probably a split. It's hard to beat a team twice in 3 week span.
It's true, and Detroit is a better team. That doesn't mean that they're a better team than Green Bay. Didn't stop them from losing, so it wasn't that big of a deal. You mentioned that you kind of watch football by yourself every single week, and I think that one of the fun Thanksgiving experiences that you end up watching football, presumably with your family, or if you're away from your family, you get friends who are also in the same situation as you to come over, because you and I have had plenty of those Thanksgivings, I think, in our lifetime, because we've lived away from where our family lives, that we all get together or something like that on Thanksgiving Day, have a meal with some friends, whatever it might be. But you get to watch football with different people than you normally get to watch it with. So you are over here, and you've watched football with me before, you've watched football with Cuss before, but with the other people in the room, did you anticipate an hour-long argument about whether or not Tyreek Hill is the fastest player in the NFL?
I did not. And that kept going. It kept going. I was surprised at how long that it went. I thought it was just clear cut. Pretty obvious that Tyreek Hill's the fastest guy in football. Like, that's where I would put my money on Tyreek Hill. Over the past couple of years, he's had the most explosive plays on the football field. But no, this was a deep convo. Some pretty cool statistics that I learned in the room about certain players. We gave some love to John Ross, who is a former top pick from the Bengals, who had a ton of speed but didn't do anything at all on the football field. But no, it's good, man. Your crew is a lot of fun to watch football games with. They're very intelligent. Everybody's throwing bets around picks and live game betting and anytime touchdown stuff. And it was a whole lot of fun. Curtis Samuel had a great day. I think some of the room wanted him to have a 2 touchdown day. He was stopped at the 1, but he ended up having 100 yards receiving, and we had a good time with that. And that was a lot of fun, man. And I love getting together with you guys.
Yeah,
I can't wait for next.
It's always a good time. If there was some way we could figure out how to make that a show while you watch the games, I think it would be a lot of fun. I don't know if the people can handle that and like keeping like within like 15 minutes, I'd get a call from DraftKings. They'd be like, "Yeah, you need to take this show down," and you're fired immediately. Just not the most wholesome language being thrown around, but it is just like people on their phones and like yelling at the screen and making live bets.
Yeah, and I'm here for that. At one point when we worked together at Fantasy, I wanted to put a camera in the office as well. Just I'm sure your viewers and your listeners know how entertaining that would be. For Cam and obviously Gabe, and then the convos that you and I would have with Gary, and then the crazy stupid stuff that Drew would say. But yeah, it was highly entertaining last night for sure. Learned a lot. We got down some when Tim is in the room, you get down some random avenues like rules of cricket and the length of games, and we're talking F1 racing and why the hell is it starting at 2 a.m. Eastern, time. It's a lot of fun.
Or his country by country breakdown of why World War I began.
I don't know if I know that he's super intelligent, but sometimes I just don't know if he's spewing these things out. I'm just like, man, it seems legit. It seems correct, but history buff guy knows a lot about some things that happened back in the day. But yeah, it was some interesting conversations yesterday for sure. And you have to when the Washington Commanders can't play football and they're down 30 plus points, right? You kind of get down some different avenues.
Well, it turned out that I think that Washington became the first team of all time to have like X amount of first downs, a 300-yard passer, X amount of rushing yards, and only one turnover to lose a game in the NFL, and they lost by 35.
Unbelievable. Amazing. And I can't even think of any mistakes where it felt like they should have scored more points. I mean, Ron Rivera, I wonder if Ron Rivera, it's tough to fire a guy on Black Friday or Thanksgiving week. I mean, from a personal standpoint, I would say that he may have been fired last week after the loss to DeVito, right? I would assume like that would be the last straw. If I was like up in the front office and I saw that game, a second loss to New York Giants, it would be all over. But maybe they give him a pass because it's Thanksgiving. There was a couple bonehead fourth down plays. I just hate when teams, it's 4th and 1 and they just run up the middle. We saw
out of shotgun
a couple times.
Out of shotgun. Fucking sneak it.
It's ridiculous. Some of the play calling, there's no creativity at all. And Tom Brady said this week, I know his video started trending, just the poor quarterback play, the poor coaching, the product of the football. And I agree with him a lot. There's a lot of bad coaching. There's a lot of bad quarterbacks. There's the development is not where it needs to be. And Washington yesterday, there was another play early in the game, and I don't think we talked about this, but I was thinking about it on the way home. I mean, it was a tie game. They were in Dallas's end, and I think it was maybe 4th and 4, and they decided to punt it away. Like, come on, you guys are 13-point dogs. You have 3 or 4 wins on the season. You're the opening drive here. What are you doing? Like, let's try to move the ball. So they didn't go for it then, and then when they went for it on 4th down situations, the play calling was just. It was so bad. And the same thing last night when I was listening on the way home. Pete Carroll and company in 4th and 1, just giving it to Zach Charbonnet to get smashed behind the line 2 times in a row. Like 3rd and 1, 4th and run. They ran the same play. And I wonder why it didn't work out. So the coaching is pretty bad these days.
Well, the top bet of the day ended up coming through, which was the Juwan Jennings under. That's the one that I had the most money on. But yeah, we hit some like 10-1 same game parlays, donated some of the money back, got some of the money back again later on. So it was a pretty fun day overall. I hope everyone had a great time, a very safe Thanksgiving, a very fun Thanksgiving, and I hope you got to argue around. It is worth noting, though, that Tim is a doctor in real life, but he is a doctor of like knowing about history. So he's pretty legit with a lot of that stuff. Things he was not spot on how good Bobo was going to be in that game.
Yeah, I actually looked this morning. I said, what'd Bobo do? Because I feel like Tim talked about him a lot. He had one catch.
Yeah,
one catch for 6 yards or one catch for 6 yards. Yeah, Bobo didn't do anything. Seattle, who he loves a lot. I thought I liked the Seahawks quite a bit. He seems to like Seattle a hell of a lot more than I do. I like Seattle, but I don't like them against the Niners. Like there's obviously watching that game last night, there's a big divide between those two squads. But yeah, Tim was all over the Seahawks. He's all over the Falcons this week. And those are two teams that, especially Atlanta, again, I don't want to dive back into them, but they're a team that I just don't think they have it at all. They win close football games, they win tight football games, but I just don't think they have the quarterback play to compete in the NFC.
Like the Seahawks are now down to 5-6. I still think they'll probably end up getting the 6th seed, although their next like 4
Tough
games
schedule,
are
man.
impossible. Maybe the Rams leap them in that division. Who knows?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, who could squeak in? Is it the Rams that could squeak in? They could win this week against Arizona. Sounds like Kupp could play. I don't know their schedule offhand, but I know Seattle has San Fran again. Dallas, right?
Philly. No, they
and
played
the Eagles.
Did they just
They
play
do
Philly?
have the Eagles.
They do. The next few weeks
No.
they go Cowboys. So they just played the Niners and lost. Next week they have Cowboys on Thursday night, then the Niners, then the Eagles, then the Titans, then the Steelers. Like they're better than the Steelers probably, but they'll lose that game.
They may win 2 of those games. 2 of those games, remaining games, and it would be those last ones. Maybe they beat. I don't think they'll beat Dallas or San Fran. Maybe they beat Philly. I don't know.
Basically,
but
the Rams
not.
the Rams need to win this week at the Cardinals because then they go Browns, Ravens, which are probably too locked. Maybe you know what? Maybe they could beat the Browns like 10-9 or something like that, but they're going to be huge underdogs in those games. But then they get like Commanders, Saints, and Giants. They could win all 3 of those games. Then they're at the 49ers, presumably. Probably not much for the 49ers to play with. Either they're going to have the number 2 seed locked up. If Philly keeps winning, it's probably better for the Rams at this point.
Yes, absolutely would agree with that. Yeah, Cleveland and Baltimore on the road in Baltimore. That's going to be a tough one. Like you said, Washington and the Saints.
They should
and the Giants.
forfeit. They keep your team healthy. Forfeit the game.
Keep Stafford and Kupp healthy, upright. Forfeit the game. Move on to next week. Absolutely, I could see something like that. Obviously, it's not going to happen, but that would be ideal for Seattle. And the other team, can you see 2 teams from the NFC South making it? Could you see the Bucs also making it? Probably not. Like there, at the end of the day, we're going to see a team at 8-9 make the playoffs, and it's probably Seattle. Right?
I would probably still say 9-8. Like Seattle, the Rams, and the Vikings can all get there. The Packers aren't dead yesterday too. Like that was a big win for them.
It was a big win for them. What's their schedule like? They got after Detroit here, so they go KC next week. That's a tough one. Oh, there's a winnable schedule actually. The Giants, the Bucks, the Panthers, and the Vikings. So there's some games in there. You're right. They're not dead. They've won 2 straight, 3 of 4. Jordan Love looks like the past couple of games he's looked pretty good. Still a lot of holes defensively on that squad, but I think it goes to show how many mediocre teams maybe inside the NFC and how top heavy the conference is. Because even these teams that we're talking about getting in, they're not going to make any noise. It's going to be San Fran, Philly, Dallas, and then the next tier.
Then Detroit, maybe.
And then there's another tier of these other squads that are just.
Well, we had a friend ask us last night, like, where would you like power rank Minnesota in terms of the NFL? Is he like top 12? It was like probably like 17th. They're probably worse than like 11 AFC teams.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is not great. I like what Dobbs has done. You got to give him a lot of credit to go to a new team and get this done here in 3 weeks, have 2 Ws. It's pretty solid. He's doing it without Justin Jefferson. I like some of their pieces on offense, like Hawkinson's a beast and Jordan Addison's great, but they can't run the football at all with Madison. And he turns the ball over a lot. And I mean, the defense still does. They give some big plays. So yeah, a lot of those teams inside the AFC have clearly, KC and Baltimore. I still think Buffalo's a better team than Minnesota, even though they're going through some things in their secondary.
I have it pulled up right now. And I don't think Minnesota is bad, but if they were in the AFC, they'd be the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. It'd be just a bubble squad in the 7, 8, 9 spot.
No, they'd be way behind that.
Like wouldn't make the playoffs.
Like I mean, I want to say that they're better than Denver, but they just lost to Denver, and Denver's kind of on a little bit of a roll right now. So you go like Miami and Buffalo are probably better. I guess Cincinnati with Jake Browning, who knows? But I'm going to say all 4 teams in the AFC North are better. Maybe not the Bengals with Browning. Jacksonville and Houston are probably better. Kansas City, the Broncos, and I mean, the Chargers went into Minnesota and beat them up. So there's 11 teams right there.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say the Chargers, but you're right about that. The Chargers are just so weird. They just need a new head coach. They got too much talent on both sides of the football to be a 500 squad. And the way that they lose games with drops and just seems to be something. I joined you on Sunday and we talked about it. There was just so many bad drops and the Eckler fumble. So I don't really believe in the Chargers. I think it's a wash. But yeah, the fact that we're having that conversation, LA versus Minnesota and some of these other teams as well. What do you think about this is off topic here, but you mentioned Cleveland. Is Myles Garrett like the most valuable player in the NFL this year? Like Cleveland can't score any points.
Yeah, we've had this conversation about a few things. Like everyone's making the case. I mean, a few weeks ago on your mighty Eagles, it's like, well, AJ Brown, he's actually the MVP. He's the best player. And now it's like, oh, Tyreek Hill, he's the best player. He's the MVP. Like, remember what Tyreek did without Tua last year? Not to say that he's like Tua created, but I think that it's a symbiosis type of thing. Like, I don't think Tua's the MVP either. But when you have Skylar Thompson throwing the ball or Teddy Bridgewater, it's not quite the same.
Right. I think that Myles Garrett deserves some love. I mean, this is a very bad offensive squad in Cleveland. Even when Deshaun Watson was playing, he wasn't great. He had a couple nice moments, and they can't do anything offensively. But this defense is top notch. And if they continue to win football games by scoring 13, 14, 17 points, I think you have to give them some. I mean, you could say CMC all you want, Tyreek Hill and those players, and that's fine. But the true definition of MVP is most valuable player. Like, if they didn't have Myles Garrett, this team probably would be a 3-win team. Like, they are winning games because of him. He's doing all kinds of crazy things on the field, and there's no quarterback that has really stepped up. Like, Patrick Mahomes is not having a Patrick Mahomes type season. There's like 3 teams in the NFL that have more turnovers than Kansas City. Like, some of these things are on the wide receivers, but also Mahomes he's throwing some picks. He's turning the ball over. He doesn't seem like himself. Jalen's been okay. It hurts, right? But you have the record, and it usually goes to a quarterback and a team that's going to win a bunch of games. Lamar has been just okay. He went through a stretch where they won football games basically because of their defense, and he wasn't asked to do a whole lot for him. So his total touchdowns are not fantastic. Allen's gone through some moments with some picks. Purdy's probably back in the conversation. Like, he's entered the MVP conversation twice, Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
and he's just been
Stroud,
all
Dak.
right as well.
Yeah, Stroud and Dak.
And then the other guy. I would probably rank them: Garrett, Hurts.
It's not going to be Garrett, man.
CMC, and I know it won't be, but he should be a top candidate. And then I would say, Stroud. It's a 3-win team last year. 3-win team. They had 2 picks in the first 3 overall, right? 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah, they had picks.
And what he has done with this
3.
squad, I'd say he's not only is he going to get Offensive Rookie of the Year. If the Texans make the playoffs, don't you think that's MVP right there, man? Like, they're not a playoff squad without CJ Stroud as a rookie and winning the games that he has won. I think he's definitely in conversation.
I think it's a really interesting bet at 18-1 right now. And obviously, he would have to keep it up. They would have to win the division. That might be enough to get him in. But like, I see Myles Garrett right now.
I got him at 60-1.
That's pretty good.
I got like little sprinkle before he went off against Burrow. It was just like, you know what? Everyone was in the media was talking about Burrow. 9-1 Burrow.
I hope Jake Browning is like what Tom Brady did for the Patriots the year that he first came in, because I have so many Bengals futures. Everything was lining up for the Bengals to be like, oh, there's the path right there. They're going to be the best team in the AFC. And he's just out.
I'm with you.
Gone.
I had the Bengals going to the Super Bowl.
Me too.
Because they were the team. And I think if you asked Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and some truth serum or whatever, like, they would tell you the team that they don't want to play would be the Bengals, because they're the only team that's beaten Kansas City. They're the only ones. Like, Mahomes lost at home to Joe Burrow. They almost lost last year as well, when everybody else they've just beaten. And other teams have gotten in their way, whether it's Lamar and turnovers and Josh Allen and turnovers. But that was the team, and you're right. Everything was kind of setting up. They had their bye at the right time, and then the injuries happened to T. Higgins again and Burrow. So they're obviously finished, but we'll see what Browning can do. I could see them winning against Pittsburgh, but I'm not too excited about Cincy moving forward.
No. It'll be Hurts, Lamar, or Mahomes. Unless the Bills win out, then it's Josh Allen, which that's not going to happen.
It could. It's Allen's still among the leaders in touchdowns. Right?
Is it one of these things where they don't ask Buffalo to play defense anymore? It's just like, we'll just pencil in points for the other team, and you have to beat that score.
Exactly. Because the secondary has so many issues right now defensively. They're going to give up a lot of points, and they can't stop the run, and they can't run the football. So it really is going to be on Josh Allen. And there's some big time games coming up, right? He's got the Eagles, of course, this week. The Cowboys are going to have the final game of the season against Miami, which could be for the division. So if they rattle off a couple wins, and it's on the arm and legs of Josh Allen 3 or 4 times. I think, what's his odds? Like 20-1? I think he's a decent long shot because all the narrative is the picks, but every year he leads the league in picks. That doesn't really matter.
He's at 35-1 right now. The other
35 now.
Yeah, the other one that I was looking at was Lawrence. That if he just has a big next, like he beats the crap out of Houston this week, they go on, they end up with like the 2 seed in the AFC or something like that, which is plausible based on their schedule, and he plays really well. Then it's the leap from him. I don't think that he's going to win, but 40 is out of all of the long shots, I think his is the most possible because I just don't see the Bills winning out. Too many hard games.
Yeah, both of those teams that have to win out, and then even at the end of the day, like I know that the voters look at the record as much as that's silly. They look at records, and if the Eagles are sitting there with 1 or 2 losses,
and I think
just give it to Jalen.
I think they'll give it to Hurts. If Hurts doesn't get hurt again, I think they'll give it to Hurts as almost a makeup from last year.
Yeah, because he could really make the case that he should have won it last year, even missing those games that he did, and even in the Super Bowl, he was the best quarterback in the game.
And weirdly, although it really worked against him, because and here's the weird thing about the MVP that I always try to bring up to people, that it doesn't really matter what you do in week 8 and week 9. No one cares. It's really what happens in week 15, 16, and 17 that determines who wins.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's those wins down the stretch where you put your team in the playoff spot, whether it's the 1 seed or winning the division, and it does matter of those teams that you beat. And as you referenced with Josh Allen, the games coming up are pretty tough. So if he can find a way to win some of those football games, get his team in the playoffs, mixing with all of those injuries that they have, overcoming all of the turnovers and the fumbles that he has as well, I think it's a pretty decent long shot. But man, I don't know. I think that they should give it maybe to Myles Garrett if Cleveland wins 10 games with that piss poor offense and quarterback play. It won't happen. If they didn't give it to Cooper Kupp a couple years ago, why would they give it to a non-quarterback this year? Like Cooper Kupp, I thought got robbed a couple years ago.
He didn't get robbed because there's no position that is as important as quarterback, and that's just the truth.
Yeah.
But when it comes
to quarterback award,
it's a quarterback award. Where they're the most, until we find a position that's more valuable or at least comparable in terms of value, then that's just the way that it's going to have to be. But we all know, and as I talked to you about, that this all comes down to everyone's going to shit on Kansas City. They're going to end up with the 1 seed in the AFC, and they're going to win the Super Bowl because it's going to come down to, they're actually playing good defense now. And in the fourth quarter of one of these games, it's like, Patrick Mahomes has to make one play, and they're going to win, and he's going to make the play.
That's the difference with Kansas City this year. Yeah, the past couple of years, they've had to score 30, 35, 40 points to win football games. And like that's a game last week that they really should have won because their defense was so good that they didn't have to do a whole lot in that spot. And the defense is legit. They're top 5 in a lot of metrics. They can get after the quarterback. I think they have the 3rd or 4th most sacks as well. It's a really, really good defense. So it's kind of evened out, right? It's the offense was so good, the defense was so poor, and now it's kind of flip-flop there a little bit. It's hard to not back Mahomes, but they do have something going on, and I think it's more than just the drops. It's the development of these wide receivers. They're running wrong routes. That happened multiple times in that game against the Eagles. Mahomes doesn't trust his wide receivers. He's running more than he's ever ran. He has a career high in terms of rushing yards. We talked about quarterbacks and rushing props. He's always at the low 20s. I mean, he's averaging 30 per game. Sometimes when he doesn't, if there's something he doesn't like, he just tucks and runs himself. So I don't know. The Chiefs are fine, right? They're still awesome. But Travis Kelce as well is dealing with something. He's not getting separation. He's not the same type of player. So it's different. I don't want to say they're built wrong. Like their offense is not built correctly. But when you have a quarterback that's the best quarterback in the world and he can just overcome a lot of mistakes on the field, you're going to win a lot of football games.
All right. Obviously, Thanksgiving has now passed, which means it's time to start your Christmas shopping, your holiday shopping for the year. And Omaha Steaks let you take the guesswork out of all of that. Shop carefully curated gift packages that are guaranteed to make spirits bright all winter long. You know that I do it for everyone in my life that I don't know who to buy for, who also enjoys eating meat. Then boom, send them some Omaha Steaks, and it's Black Friday weekend, so you know that there's great deals to be had. So if you go to omahasteaks.com right now, you will save 50% off site-wide. Plus, when you use promo code MAYO at checkout, you get an additional $30 off your order. Send tender, juicy, butcher's cut filet mignons, mouth-watering burgers, gourmet jumbo franks, or even just easy-to-prepare meals. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities, they're endless, and this offer's not going to last long. So, give a gift from the heart. Go to omahasteaks.com and take advantage of the 50% off site-wide. Plus, use promo code MAYO at checkout to get that extra $30 off your order. Minimum order may be required. If you hit the description right now, you can find the direct link and all of the details. So, highly recommend that you go do that. Let's talk about DraftKings for week number 12. Let's talk about the chalk at running back and try to reverse engineer some lineups that maybe can actually win us some money this week. I was sick last week, so I didn't do the show. Tambo was away for King of the Beach anyway. We're giving away those winners next week when Tambo's back in studio. And I did not have a great week. So I need to bounce lineups off someone. Is something that, people have their process. I use Run the Sims, and then I try to use the information that it's giving me, but I need to bounce the ideas off someone to come up with the right stacks here, Meaney. It's looking like points per dollar wise and ownership wise, Jonathan Taylor is going to be the man this week. He's $6,900. He's relatively cheap. The Bucs have one of the best run defenses in football, though, so it's kind of terrifying.
It is, but I really like that game from a fantasy standpoint. There's a lot of dud games on this slate this week with some low totals, and I would lean to the under on some of these 33, 34s. I like both running backs in that game, but yeah, Taylor's underpriced at 6.9. I see the same thing at FTN in terms of points per dollar. If you look at the past couple of weeks, like the training wheels, so to speak, has just come off of him. A lot of carries, like 23 carries is the most that we saw from him, and that was the last time that we saw the Colts play, and the week before that was 18. It hasn't been super efficient though, 2.6 yards per carry and 3 yards per carry. So New England's a good run defense. They're actually, I think, the leader heading into this week in terms of yards per carry allowed. So it may not be super efficient again. Maybe he only ends up with 70, 75 yards on 20 some odd carries, but it's those carries and those opportunities and plus the targets. One thing I've noticed with Gardner Minshew, he really just throws the football to two guys. I guess we can include Taylor as the third guy. It's Michael Pittman and it's Downs who's been hurt. Nobody else in the team has more than 264 receiving yards. Like nobody outside of Downs and Michael Pittman. How pathetic is that? But I like this price point. He probably will be the most chalkiest running back here, but volume is king. And I just want to say on the other side, at a similar price point, is Rachaad White at $6,100. Again, not super efficient. You look at the last few games, 3.3 yards per carry, 2.6, 3.7, but back-to-back games of 20 carries, and he's got 41 grabs after having 50 catches as a rookie. He basically hauls in everything that's thrown his way, and I think both of these running backs combined could probably get like 45 plus opportunities, and that's really, really appealing on this slate.
If this is a game that you're going to target, maybe this is one of the games that we can build out. I think I would just punt off Jonathan Taylor, use Rachaad White, and use Michael Pittman instead, just because I know that you can attack the Indy defense or the Tampa defense down the field. And it's not to say that Jonathan Taylor is going to have a bad game. He's going to get those goal line opportunities. But you just have to hope that he has a very inefficient game on the ground, doesn't score multiple touchdowns, and then things start to filter through the air a little bit more. And then Rachaad White can bring it back going the other way, because the Colts are kind of the opposite, right? Where they have a kind of porous run defense, but a very good pass defense, that maybe that's the angle that you want to play. So Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Bijan Robinson, Rachaad White, Isaiah Pacheco are the ones really coming in right now in terms of ownership inside the top five. They're also 5 of the best points per dollar plays, so that rates out pretty well anyway. And Run the Sims will have a full update on Saturday after the Black Friday game with ownerships, because everyone's kind of lollygagging this week. And it happens, Meaney, when people are on, and when it's almost industry-wide. This is the weird thing about being Canadian in an American-centric business that we've been in for over a decade now, that when it's our holidays, everyone's expecting you to do anything. There's a bit more forgiveness when it's an American holiday.
I know. I swear, man, Jake asks me every Thanksgiving when my Thanksgiving in Canada is, and he's like almost embarrassed to ask if I have one. If we've already done it, when it is. Geez, he asked me this week if I have turkey. And do you guys have turkey for your Thanksgiving? Like, I was like, holy crap. But yeah, things are, we just have the ownership projections up now. I know I was looking yesterday and it was a little bit slow moving, but Blickle and company's all over it. So yeah, It is what it is. We've been working for the American companies for a little bit, so it's almost like a holiday for us too. But we also pick up the slack for everybody else that's actually on the holiday.
So I think that we'll see what ends up happening, whether the activation happens today, whether it happens tomorrow. It looks like it's going to happen. Is Kyron Williams coming back? Only 6,600, probably with the best matchup of the week against Arizona. And if he's actually I don't think they would have activated him if he wasn't healthy. They've already cut Darrell Henderson, so I assume that he's coming back. Just make sure that that's locked in stone when it happens. But he's the play here.
Yeah, he is. And I think what you said is key, is that the fact that they let go of Darrell Henderson, and he had some okay moments from him. He's been in the system. You would think that maybe they would just keep him around. I think there's some reports that maybe Ronnie Rivers would be active as well. Maybe that's part of it. But what we saw from Kyron before he went down was just a massive, massive usage rate, all the opportunities, every touch inside the red zone, and not just some of the carries. Stafford checking down to him. In the Niners game, he had 10 targets and 6 grabs, and the next game he had 7 targets and 2 grabs. Now he's not hauling those in, but 17 targets for a running back in a 2-game span. I know Cooper Kupp wasn't there, is pretty significant. And so I would say he's good to go. I think the best 2 matchups really in terms of teams that allow rushing yards and yards per carry and explosive runs would be this one and Kyron over against Arizona. And the other one, even though he hasn't been great this year, is Derrick Henry.
Oh, yeah.
It is. Derrick Henry against Carolina. And the biggest thing, Pat, about Henry is, you know, a lot of Tajay Spears talk, and people are talking about Spears trending up. And I get it. I like Spears, and he could be next year's Jalen Warren, is like the breakout running back in football. But the Titans have been down in so many football games this year. Then that's part of the reason I think Henry's not getting those 20-plus carry games that we're used to seeing. And Spears is getting on the field and in some third down situations, they can't move the ball. But against the Panthers, they should be able to maybe be in the game or up. They're 3.5-point favorites. I don't even know if they've been 3.5-point favorites all year long. So they can run the ball, establish the run against this team that can't stop it. And on the other side, Bryce Young is not getting anything going. There's no separation on any wide receiver apart from Adam Thielen. The play calling is pathetic. Frank Reich has given it up and he's taken it back, and they're not throwing the ball 10 yards down the field. So this is a game where actually the Titans could control it. And I think Henry could be one of those old school Henry games where he has like 25 carries.
I mean, it's not quite D-Hember yet. D-Henry, or whatever they call it. D-Henber. But it's close enough. Yeah. It's starting to get a little bit chilly. Yeah. So, like, there's a group of these, like, I'm curious, what do you have as a projection right now in terms of ownership for Derrick Henry? Because looking at it as, like, medium projection versus ceiling projection, it's really funny because his medium projection is, like, 13 points, which puts him on the level of, like, Javonte Williams, Josh Jacobs, well below ETN, like, in the same range as Jalen Warren and Ramondre Stevenson. But when you take a look at his ceiling projection, like, he's above Saquon Barkley.
Right. Yeah. For us, we actually only have him for 14 points, but we have the ceiling. We have the ceiling for 19, which I don't think is high enough.
Yeah. We have him at 28.
Yeah. The ceiling should be much higher than this. And this is a little bit conservative. Maybe we'll dive in and update here as the week goes on. But for us, I'm seeing guys like Taylor, ETN, Saquon, Rashad White, Kamara, and Swift ahead of him in terms of the ceiling projection. And I don't think that's I would say that's incorrect. I would say that he has probably the 3rd highest ceiling on the slate. We can't look too much at recent history here. We have to look at the matchup and what teams have been doing against Carolina all year. And Henry still has that capability of just being the best running back on the slate any given week.
I mean, I'm a bit behind too on some of the information. Will Levis is fine, right? Like he's gonna end up playing, because he was out earlier in the week. And there's a Deadspin article coming out that Ryan Tannehill backing up Will Levis is a racial double standard. Okay, Deadspin. I think we've seen enough.
Wow.
Deadspin trying to get them clicks. Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be
full participant in practice. Will Levis,
so he's going to be fine.
Let's not get too carried away here.
I would think they probably want to limit the amount of throwing that he does. I mean, just let him bomb it. You have 20 passes.
Play action.
You can have 20 passes you can try out in this game, Will Levis. 19 of them have to be 50-yard passes to DeAndre Hopkins. Everything else, just turn around and hand the ball off, man.
Absolutely. And look at the game log here for Derrick Henry. There's 3 games this season where he has 20 carries. Against the Chargers, they won that game, 27-24. Against the Bengals, they won that game, 27-3. And then against the Falcons, which is a game they won as well, 28-23. And I believe that was Will Levis's first game there as quarterback. So if you're painting the game script here and you feel like the Titans is 3.5 point favorites at home win the football game, and I do think that, this is a game where he should be able to rack up near 20 carries. And if you're giving me 20 carries for Derrick Henry, I'm in. I'm not in on these 10 for 38, 11 for 24. Like, those are games that they just got blown out and he wasn't on the field. So yeah, he's going to get 20 plus carries this week. And he 20, if you give him 20 carries, you give him 100 yards. Cause I'm looking 22 for 122, 22 for 101, 25 for 80 against the Chargers. He caught 3 passes. So yeah, I'd say he's a really good play at 6'4".
Yeah, there's a really interesting tier of guys here that don't seem to be like they're going to be wildly overowned. Like from Kyron Williams to Jalen Warren to Jerome Ford to Ramondre Stevenson against the Giants. Kamara against the Falcons isn't getting quite the love that I thought. ETN's not getting any love at all, and neither is Derrick Henry. Like, it's not that they're going to be unowned, but they're well behind the Jonathan Taylors and Rashad Whites of the world, like half their ownership. That I think that's basically is going to create a group of like those 5 guys and just run them through a bunch of lineups.
Yeah, what do you think the Steelers? Do you think the Steelers' offense will look different with Matt Canada gone? They still have Kenny Pickett under center. Like, I don't know how much this could really change. Do they just unleash Jalen Warren? Because he has looked like the better running back. I mean, he's got more rushing yards over the last 4 weeks than Najee Harris. Harris got more carries, more opportunities. I still think Harris is the goal line back there, but I do believe that Jalen Warren needs more opportunities. I mean, looking at some of our statistics, I don't want to say that Harris is trash. He gets hit behind the line 34% of the time. It's the most in football. When the Steelers offense is just so damn vanilla, like, oh, 1st and 10, run it up the middle, stuffed. 2nd and 10, we'll give it another one to Henry, stuffed. Then they get in 3rd and long situations. There's softer boxes, and Jalen Warren busts one out, or he catches a screen pass that he goes for like 15, 20 yards. So I wonder if I have this feeling that Warren will pick up a little bit more steam in terms of ownership. And I just wonder what your thoughts and if you're willing to roll this, like 9 for 121, 15 for 101, 11 for 88. This is a guy who just racks up a ton of yards, but is he like Lamar Miller? When you give him 20 carries, he's no good, or is he just suited for 12 to 15 touches a game? And that's why he's good. I don't know.
He might be very Lamar Miller. I think that's probably a pretty good comp. So I'm fine if he gets 15 touches in the game. Like, he is the price point that makes a lot of this stuff work this week. Like, he and Jerome Ford at 56 and 54 can be your flex play. They can be your second running back if you want to do one of the more expensive stacks this week. Because after that, once you get below his threshold of 54, like, you're looking at Kareem Hunt, who may or may not touch the ball in that game against Denver. It's a good matchup against Denver. You can run on Denver. Like, that's not, we saw Latavius Murray and James Cook both have like career days. Not career day for Latavius Murray. Career day for this stage Latavius Murray. Now, you can most definitely still run on Denver. That's not a problem. But other than that, like, if you go below that, the Kareem Hunt threshold, like, he's if dicey to begin with. Then you have Najee at 49. Not terrible. Like, maybe this is the game for Najee because everyone's kind of on the Warren jock right now. He's a little bit cheaper. He's probably still going to carry the ball between the tackles, which is not good. That's why Warren has been better, frankly, that he gets to run outside the tackles. But Cincinnati's run defense is terrible. That if you get the ball on the 1 yard line, it's probably going to be Najee Harris trying to dump it in. Like, Hubbard and Sanders, we don't know what their split is going to be anymore. At like 44 and 48, like, do you really want to do that in a projected bad game script against Tennessee, against a good run defense in Tennessee? Tajay Spears on the other side, like, I'd rather not spend $4,400 on Tajay Spears, who's really not done anything, although it's a great matchup, but he might touch the ball 6 times. So you're into that range of players now where I think that Warren makes the most sense, Ramondre makes a lot of sense, Jerome Ford makes a lot of sense as your second running back, if that's where you need to save the money. If not, then you can go into the Rashad White territory up to 61, although he's pretty chalky. We talked about Ramondre, ETN at 71, Derrick Henry at 64. Like, if you can put 3 of those guys or 2 of those guys into a lineup with the receivers that you want to use, I think that makes more sense. But once we start getting down to Javonte and the lower 5K guys, those are the guys. Like, that's basically it.
Yeah, there's I think Najee would be the cheapest I would play at 4-9, and I would have to have like 5 or 6 lineups. And just it'd be like one stab, and just in case, right? Like Brown can't move the football, the Steelers can dial up some pressure. They get into some situations where they can run the ball inside the goal line, and maybe that's where Harris, like if he can rack up a touchdown, he's still catching some passes, but if he can rack up a touchdown for you, maybe he can finish with 15, 16, 17 DK points potentially. Like that's kind of where I think his ceiling is at. Zeke has got the split with Ramondre, and I think that's what makes Ramondre so appealing, is because people still see Zeke as a goal line back. But if you look at Ramondre over the last few weeks, I mean, 20 carries in his last game, he's had 80 plus yards in back-to-back games, and he's catching passes again. At the start of the season, he wasn't. From week 2 to week 5, he had 6 grabs, and over the last 4 weeks, it's quick math here, he's flirting with 20 grabs, right? He's got at least 4 targets in 5 straight games, so he's getting a lot of. And now it's not a game where they're going to be playing from behind, right? I mean, it should be a pretty tight game, and I think that's okay. Like for a tight game, maybe it's more, more touches for him on the ground. I think that's a good call by you. I wasn't really thinking about him. Jerome Ford, I was looking at, and I was thinking about passing on Jerome Ford because of maybe him being pretty chalky, but
he's not, though.
Cleveland likes to run the football,
and he's not that chalky,
and he's not. Yeah, and he's not going to be. I thought that he may be, but given some of the guys around him, he will get overlooked. So, and if you give me a running back against the Broncos that's going to get 20 carries on a run first offense, I'm kind of intrigued with that as a flex play, like you said, maybe a second RB in a couple of lineups.
Do you think that
I'd rather play him and Javonte?
Yeah, that's fair. At receiver, I just want to talk about some of the cheap ones because we'll build them up with our stacks a little bit later on. And do you have any injury news on Michael Wilson, whether or not he's playing or not?
The last I saw from Michael Wilson was looking doubtful. I don't have anything concrete. Take a look here as we get going.
Yeah, I just couldn't find much information. That's also one of the things this week that, it's not just people in the betting or fantasy industry that are kind of lagging behind. The actual information from the reporters and the team is a little bit lagging behind as well. Let's see. I have an API.
Doesn't look good.
I have an API. Well, if that's the case, do you believe in Dortch?
I mean, in this matchup, Kyler hasn't been locked into Hollywood like he was this time last year, or at least at the start of the season. So, I mean, I could get behind it. What's his price? I wasn't really looking at him. He is 3-3. It's not bad.
The human
not too
Dortch.
bad at all for a guy that's coming off a game with 8 targets last week and 6 grabs. Yeah, that's a good one because I don't believe in Rondale Moore.
No, neither do I. And Rondale Moore had the one big shot. I mean, I played Rondale Moore last week, almost like everyone did, because he was so cheap. There was no Michael Wilson. He catches a bomb on like the first 5 plays of the game for a touchdown. It's like, here we go. 1 target. It worked.
Here we go. And the rest was Dortch. And for Hollywood, 9 targets and 3 grabs in the 2 games. And I know he's not 100% either. He didn't practice yesterday due to a heel injury. I hope that he's good to go and he plays, because if not, it would just be Dortch would be very, very, very popular at 3-3.
Yeah, Wilson,
but somebody has to catch the football there.
Wilson DNP did not practice on Thursday, so we'll continue to monitor his status. That's why the Saturday show, I think, this week is going to be uber important. I wasn't able to do it last week because I couldn't talk on Saturday last week, but I will be returning on Saturday evening with some of the information. So the cheap guys, the points per dollar wise that the simulator loves this week, it loves Juju and Demario Douglas at 3,000 and 4,400. Although we're not yet certain at this moment whether or not Mac Jones is a starter. I'm going to guess he's a starter.
I'm going to guess that he's the starter too. He took first team reps all week. I was joking with you and Pat or Paul before the show about the press conference of Bill, and he always has these press conferences, but he said he told his team to be ready 18 times. 18 times NFL Live counted the word ready for him. But I think it's silly, man. Like Mac Jones came out yesterday and said he doesn't know who's starting. He hopes that he's starting. He's taking the reps and he expects to start, but you got to name your starter, Bill, at some point. And I think they probably should go to Zappy because every week they just take out Mac Jones. But I'm not crazy about Juju.
No.
Demario Douglas doesn't have that high ADOT. He's a little bit higher than Juju. I think it's roughly like 9, but the volume is king, and he is getting a ton of volume. So at 4-4 spending down, we like him as well. You mentioned for us, projected value, like point per dollar, it is Juju, Kirk, and Demario Douglas is the top 3 guys.
So ours is Juju, Demario Douglas, and Khalil Shakir against the Eagles because he's only 3-6.
I like Shakir.
But like Trenton Irwin is still popping up, and is like Higgins isn't officially out as of yet. But if he is out, like, would you trust Irwin at all? I mean, trust is a heavy word there. He's $3,200.
Right.
You need him to have like 5 for 50 and a touchdown. You're like, oh my god, what a great play. And he has been able to get in the to score a touchdown with Joe Burrow, with Jake Browning. How do you feel about that?
Not great.
Yeah. I think I'd rather play Dortch.
At 3. Yes, I would 100% rather play Dortch. I mean, the quarterback play is much, much better. And we're coming off a game where he got 8 targets and 6 grabs. I don't want to play Hudson, but I did notice Tanner Hudson, tight end, was getting some looks with Browning under center in that game. And you know what? The Steelers have given up some big plays, but I would assume that Porter Jr. is on Chase, and that would open up some avenues for Boyd and Irwin potentially. But the Steelers team can get after the quarterback, and the way that Joe Burrow's been sacked so many times over the past couple of years, I think Browning's in for a tough day.
How about
I would much rather play Dortch.
You gotta say, instead of playing Trent Irwin, just go to your local sports book, aka DraftKings Sportsbook, and bet Jake Browning over rushing yards.
Yeah,
that's.
I wonder what that is.
He had 4 for 40 in relief.
Yet.
Now, I don't know if that's going to be a consistent thing, but you know that TJ Watt's going to get into the backfield. You know their offensive line sucks. You know Jake Browning probably sucks. So he's just going to scramble for his life.
Yeah, 4 for 40. Good call. That's a sneaky good call because his rushing yard prop is not going to be over 20. He has one.
Does he have one out yet?
Not yet. No, he's 8-1 to score a touchdown. That's all I'm seeing in our prop shop. So nothing just yet. These props typically filter through, early afternoon on Fridays because there's so much uncertainty. Like you said, there's so many guys that are questionable.
Yeah, no Jake Browning props as of yet. Now, I don't even know if he's a prolific rusher. You think I'd do that research? You would be dead wrong on that. So yeah, I think Dortch is going to be the guy that I'm going to be filling out a lot of lineups with because I'm probably going to use Kyron Williams in a lot of lineups. So there's my Ram, there's my Arizona guy, boom, boom, and that's one really cheap guy to help me fill everything out. So just to scroll through it again before we get into the lineups, cheap tight ends this week. Once again, the best points per dollar play on the board is Trey McBride. Once again, Trey McBride is probably going to be the highest owned Cardinal. And this just gives me a good excuse to fade Trey McBride. I like Trey McBride, don't get me wrong. But $4,700 is getting up there. If I can play Dortch at 33 in his spot, then I'm probably going to do that instead.
Yeah, I dig it, Pat. I like it a lot. He will be chalky. I don't like to play chalky tight ends. The volume has been there with Kyler for 16 targets over the last 2 weeks. I like it a lot. The guy that's projecting as a GPP value for us is Evan Ingram.
Yeah, me too.
He doesn't score any touchdowns.
I know. He's the king of 7 for 42.
I know. Like there doesn't seem to be a ceiling for him. In the first 4 weeks, he had double-digit fantasy points in 3 of the first 4 games. Like he started off pretty solid, but now we got Zay Jones in the picture, so there's 3 wide receivers there, and now you're adding in Evan Ingram, 0 touchdowns on the season. I'm not excited about 6 or 7 fantasy points, at 4-2. So I'm either going to just spend down or
spend $5,000 on Taysom
Kincaid.
Hill. No, use Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
No Michael Thomas.
I guess with Carr, it's Carr that's locked in. Were you worried that maybe if it was Jameis, would that change your tune? Or is it just last time we saw the Saints, they were down so heavy, so it wasn't Taysom Hill?
Yeah, I think
it does sound like Carr, and that's better for Hill.
It is better for Hill, and we know that Carr will get yanked in the red zone for Taysom Hill, but just even lacking another receiver with Michael Thomas being out, that means you're going to get more Shaheed. I assume, that's an assumption, I don't know this, I'm not from the future, people, that Taysom Hill is just going to run more routes.
Yeah. And he's lined up actually as a wide receiver the most out of anything that he's done. I know he's labeled as a tight end here. He had a game where he caught a touchdown pass and he threw a touchdown pass. He has ran a few in. He had a stretch where he was cruising past his rushing yard prop in the low 20s. Yeah, he's a friggin' weapon, man. He really is. And at the start of the season, I thought he would just go away and this was a Peyton thing, but it's clear he needs more snaps because he is a game changer. He's either running one in, throwing one in, receiving one, and like I said, he's lining up a lot as a wide receiver. And I'm not crazy about Perry. Let's not get nuts here about Perry. You're probably right. Without Michael Thomas, it maybe means he's on the field more.
And if you want like loser of the week, just you need to punt $2,500 in your lineup. Steven Sullivan on the Panthers is the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. I'm down for loser plays of the week. I have enough of them in my life. So
I
sign
forgot.
me up for another one.
I did forget about. We talked about wide receivers. Justin Watson's $3,000. He's the min.
I actually like Justin Watson a lot.
Me too.
And I picked him up off the waiver wire in a lot of spots this week. And I know it was on full display, the drops, but I can't ignore 11 targets. I can't ignore that. There was certainly a mishap he should have ran a go route and he cut in, and that may have been a 40-yard touchdown to the house. And maybe people are looking at him a lot differently this week, or maybe even after that game. But let's also keep in mind that there was some sloppy weather in that game. We'll give him a pass on some of the drops. Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore and MVS they're not doing anything. They're not getting 10 and 11 targets. They're getting shots here and there. That's it. Travis Kelce said on the podcast this week he expects this game to be the start of something for Kadarius Toney. I'm just not buying it. I don't buy it. I think Watson at 3K against this Raiders squad. That's a really good play. I think, Pat. I'm gonna have some shares of Watson.
Yeah, I think that people are going to be on him is the thing. Like, how do you feel about playing a 10% owned $3,000 receiver? Like, maybe Watson's better than Dortch, but if Dortch is going to be 2% owned and Watson's going to be 10% owned, do you really think it's that big of a difference between the two?
No, I don't. But I wonder if it's going to be like that. I think people may be on Dortch.
Maybe.
I think you're onto something with Dortch, and especially if there's no Wilson. I think you're onto something. I would definitely rather the 2% Dortch as opposed, because I think they project very similar. And in fact, I would probably say that Dortch has a better day if there's no Michael Wilson, given what he just did. But I can't ignore what I saw in that game and Mahomes going to him on certain situations. I think he may be the guy that does step up inside this offense because Mecole Hardman wasn't doing anything either, and he got hurt. So somebody has to step up besides Travis Kelce. And if it's not him, then maybe it's just a big Pacheco game. We kind of glossed over him. He had a good game against the Eagles. So
his ownership's going to be too high for me.
Too high? So then it's Watson season.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's Mahomes, Watson, Kelce. Maybe that's the way that we can play this one. Just try to pick on the Raiders and watch their somehow bend but don't break defense actually break for once, and it would be fantastic. Defense.
They should have lost that game by like 30 points last week against the Dolphins. I'm shocked that they only lost by a touchdown.
Horrible stuff.
Yeah.
Defenses. I've never seen this before. The cheapest defense on the main slate is $2,600. It's the Texans.
It's not that cheap.
No.
Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
There's a 2K 2-1-2-2 here. What's happening? Why we got to spend up on defense here?
I mean, the
Texans are okay.
It's really strange. Like, how much are the Giants? The Giants are $3,500 against New England. Like, it's just pure craziness. I don't know what I want to do. I mean, the Patriots at 32 seem like the best play to me because they're playing the Giants. That just tracks, playing Tommy DeVito. Let's do that. And that's probably what most people are going to do. It's probably what I'm going to do. But I think you could also take a shot on the Texans at 26 if you just want to pay down. The Chiefs at 31, I think, are really good against the Raiders.
Chiefs. Yeah.
And then maybe the Titans against Carolina at $3,400. That looks pretty good.
Before I looked at pricing, I had the Titans on my sheet, but at 34, it's not too bad. It's more than you think you would spend on a defense like Tennessee. But like we said earlier with Bryce Young, man, he can't move the football. He's turning it over. There's no separation there. It's just I feel like that game is just going to be, I don't know if there'll be a lot of passing in that football game. I really like the Chiefs, and I would imagine they're probably the most popular. They're mispriced at 3-1. Like, their defense is elite, right? You saw what they did to the Eagles. Like, Jalen Hurts had maybe 1 or 2 good drives. 5 sacks. They're among the leaders in sacks. They dial up pressure. You going up against O'Connell. Snead should be able to take away Devontae Adams. Kansas City is going to score points. So when they score points, they're going to be able to dial it up even more and get after it. I don't care if they're double. I don't care if they're 10 to 12%. They're my favorite defense. I'm going to roll them out most spots.
It would be Chiefs and Patriots for me. Although the Eagles at 29, they're one of the cheapest Ds, and they get to face Josh Allen.
Yeah, and that one's a little bit surprising to me as well, because I know the secondary has been bad. When you look at some of the numbers, the most fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, and they've really struggled in the middle of the field and in the slot. And I think that Kincaid and Shakir are interesting plays this week. but they could certainly get after Josh Allen. Like they could sack him 3 or 4 times, and Josh Allen's is a turnover machine. Unfortunately, at the moment, he's turning it over at least once a game. Like some of these picks have been just like the equivalent of a punt, but they're still picks and they're still throwing them. And Philly's a tough place to play.
Well, the other thing too is, like you said, because the run defense is so good for Philly and the pass defense is mediocre, let's call it right now, although the pass rush is still quite good. That's going to indicate little lights are going to go off in the Bills' offensive staff being like, we probably shouldn't run the ball. We should only pass the ball. So even if the Bills score 24 points, it's probably still good for the Philly defense that they're going to face 45 Josh Allen passing attempts.
Yeah. I actually think that I think you're certainly onto something, but I think that the Bills should try to run the football. I think teams should try to run the football against Philadelphia. I think their run defense is good, but I don't think it's actually that good. Like what the numbers say. Like Pacheco ran all over them. Teams don't try to run on them.
We talked about this yesterday with Nnamdi Asomugha. Like Nnamdi Asomugha was awesome for the Raiders for like 2 years. And then he got credit for being the best corner in football for 3 years, and literally no one passed at him. And then by the time they started passing back at him, he was no good anymore.
Yeah, he was no good. And then everybody threw his way. Yeah, it was just this narrative that he was a lockdown, shutdown corner because he had 8 or 9 picks one year with the Raiders, and the Eagles signed all that money. In the first year, nobody threw his way. And then year 2, everybody threw his way. And I remember hearing a podcast with a former player, I forget now, but the game plan, I remember hearing that podcast was to throw to Nnamdi Asomugha. And that was the conversation that we're talking about. Like everybody just thinks that he's just friggin' awesome. But yet he's actually not. So if you throw to him, it's like Bland. Like I like Bland. He's got 5 pick sixes. That's great. It's awesome, man. He may get another one, set an NFL record, but the dude jumps routes. And you said it yesterday in the room, and I thought you were on point, is that's why quarterbacks throw at him. Like they have to keep in the back of the mind that this dude may jump a route. It's very possible. But also on the flip side, it's like Trayvon Diggs. Like he jumped a lot of routes too a couple years ago, and he had some pick sixes, but he also was among the leaders in giving up plays, like yards per route run covered. He was always checking out in the wrong ways, the statistics that you don't want over at FTN. So some of these corners are good. They make plays, they make things happen, but there's a reason that quarterbacks throw their way sometimes. Cautious when you're down 30 points, maybe don't throw it throw it near his way.
Or you just don't care at that point. It just reminds me a lot of Antonio Cromartie and Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie.
Yeah.
Like they love jumping routes, but they also love just jumping routes, not getting it, and the other guy just going down the field.
And giving up massive plays. Yeah. I think the Pats could be overlooked because of DeVito's not that good. I think it was more on Washington's secondary as well. So I think the Pats defense coming off the bye, they should be able to limit Barkley and create some turnovers there. So this is another defense I think is interesting.
All right. So we're going to go to the optimal right now. And from runthesims.com, I have it pulled up, and I'll nominate one, then you nominate a stack we'll do, and then we'll do a third one just to have some fun with it. But the optimal is Baker Mayfield as the starting quarterback with Rachaad White and Jonathan Taylor all from that game. Puka Nacua is the receiver, the top most expensive receiver right now. He's with Adam Thielen and Demario Douglas. You had mentioned Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram is the tight end in this lineup, but flexed with another tight end in Trey McBride in the Patriots defense at $3,200. Now, I don't like this lineup at all, but it's probably pretty safe for points in general. Like all of these medium projection players are going to be pretty good.
Yeah, they will. I'm not super crazy about it either. It's some of the guys that we talked about, like Ingram and McBride, maybe fading those two guys. But I think that I definitely like that game. I kind of like it the other way with maybe Minshew and Pittman and Downs.
There we go.
And then coming back with White and then maybe Evans.
Nah, I don't think you need to go too crazy. I think just even here, let's do that. Let's have that one as the first one that we build out here. Let's keep that game.
It with the
we'll do Minshew.
The Colts.
Yeah, we'll do the Minshew side, and that way we can get off of Taylor, and we still save a bunch of money. Minshew, Pittman, and White. Just keep it there. Pittman, White. I see. This isn't the game. I mean, I have a game that I do love that I want to try to stack up, and I think I know how to do it, so we'll get to that in a second. But now we have a pretty good base. We said we like Chiefs D, right?
Yep.
So we'll chuck in Chiefs D. So we still have $5,700 per player now. So we can, we mentioned Kyron Williams, right?
Yeah.
Throw in Kyron Williams. Chuck him in at running back. So now we have both of our running backs. And Dortch in that game, just as the easy bring back. Dortch. So now at 33, we're back up to $6,300 per player for a tight end, a wide receiver, and a flex. I think if we use Taysom Hill in this lineup at tight end, then we can probably get a pretty good receiver and a pretty good flex option out of it too.
Yeah, we should be able to really almost get whatever we want.
Yeah, we're at 7,000.
And I don't want Diggs or Chase up at the top. I'm not interested in those guys.
I'm interested in A.J. Brown.
Yeah, for sure.
But
what happens when you put AJ in there? How much you got left?
We have $5,000 left if we use A.J. Brown for a flex, which puts us in the territory of, you know what? We could use Drake London to go opposite Tyreek Hill.
It does make some sense, yeah. There's no Lattimore either. He's hurt.
That's not bad, actually.
Yeah, I kind of dig that. I'm looking at some 5K guys here, and
so
it's not a lot of them that check boxes for me. I like the Drake London call.
All right, so let's try that version. Now let's try the version where we don't use. Oh, let's see. Oh, I used Tyreek Hill, not A.J. Brown. That was dumb. No, that's Taysom Hill. Now I'm an idiot. Taysom Hill. Get him back in there. We'll take A.J. Brown out, take out Drake London, and have that core of Minshew, Williams, White, Pittman, Dortch, Hill, Chiefs, D. And I guess if we're not going to use A.J. Brown, let's downgrade to Eagles D in that game, save a little bit of money. So now we have $7,100 per player for a flex and wide receiver. Who in that, do you think it could be more of a Devonta Smith game than an A.J. Brown game, or is it just going to flip back to the way that it was?
I think it's going to flip back to the way that it was. I think the Chiefs did a really good job. In the Super Bowl, Snead didn't shadow A.J. Brown, and AJ had a really good game in the Super Bowl. In fact, they both did. But he followed A.J. Brown a lot. He followed him around the entire game, and it was Devontae Smith. I don't think the Bills have the personnel. They don't have, White is just not there. They don't have the corner that's going to be able to just shadow or lock down AJ. So I think it goes back to AJ, and then, maybe next week, the following week when they play San Fran, it's like a Devontae type game. But I think AJ at 9K is a smash play.
So Cooper Kupp.
Although I do think Philly runs the ball a lot.
Yeah, I could see that as well. But I think those big players are going to be there in the passing game for them. So how do you feel about Tank Dell?
I like Tank Dell a lot. Man, he just creates a lot of separation, right? I mean, you can't ignore 35 targets in the last 3 weeks. He's just a really good player, man.
There it is.
Create separation, A dots high. You got him in there? Plugged him in?
Well, at $6,900, it's a lot of money for Tank Dell. So I don't know if the ownership is going to match it. I mean, this is one of the higher total games on the slate. We can go Dell at receiver, then ETN as a flex. I would move him into the running back slot, move Kieran Williams to the flex because of the timing. But building it out on the show in real time, we get a little mini stack with Dell and ETN. We have Kyron Williams and Greg Dortch. We have Hill as a standalone at 5,000, who I just don't think people are playing. We're not using any Bills or Eagles, so we'll use the Eagles D. Then we have Minshew with Pittman and Rashad White as a comeback.
I like it. Is the other stack that you liked, is it in this Houston-Jacksonville game? Because we didn't really talk about it, and that's one that could be high scoring as well. That's a game where it could be pretty fun from a fantasy standpoint.
It's not, but do you want to build that one out after the one that I want to build out?
The Houston and Jacksonville one?
We can do that after, but we have to build out Philadelphia.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
Hurts. I just want to see if this can work. Hurts and A.J. Brown.
Yeah.
And Devonta Smith.
Okay, let's go to them all.
That means we need Shakir.
We're flying, Paul.
Shakir has to be in this at 36 just because he saves so much money.
Yeah. So we got an average of 4.4.
Then we throw in Patriots D?
Running back.
Patriots D, Chiefs D, one of those two?
Yeah. I mean,
Chiefs are cheaper.
You could spend down at Chiefs 3-1. Yeah.
So okay, now we're back up to 47. So this becomes the interesting thing. Were there any cheap tight ends that we liked?
Let's see. We're looking down. I don't know, man. I'm not going to Hudson at 2.7.
Would you go to Freiermuth? Freiermuth at 29? New offense. He only had one target in his return, but he is back. He was someone that we liked coming into the year. It's not like the Bengals defense is any great shakes. Like just as
it's
a
not
cheap
bad. I
play.
think. Yeah, like out of all these guys that are in the twos and low threes, yes, I do like Kate Otten more than him, but that's another $300.
Yeah, you know what? That's not bad though.
Yeah, it's part of that.
So now, but the
Yeah.
thing is, this gets us back up to that level of what we talked about when we were going through the running backs, that we can squeeze in a Warren, Javonte, Jerome Ford, like Ramondre. We're back in that range now, which I think is helpful.
Yes. So you could do Ramondre. I mean, you could even go Ramondre and Warren and the 4-5 leftover for the flex. You could maybe even spend up, like if you like Dortch as a flex play, if you wanted to get him in, you want to even probably go.
Let's do it.
Henry. So you can go Henry and Stevenson and then go Dortch.
Yeah. Okay. So we throw in Dortch into the flex. We have $6,200 for our running backs now. Henry. Yeah, Henry and Stevenson works. Henry and Connor were. I mean, we just use Dortch, so we're not going to use Connor. Could we, instead of doing Henry, could we do, what does Williams get us? We can do Williams and Stevenson instead of Henry
What
and
do you
Stevenson.
think of Singletary? Just
Pierce is bad.
is that going to shy people away from Singletary? How much is Pierce going to touch the ball? Singletary's got 162 yards on 52 carries in the last 2 weeks.
He did, but in that Tampa game,
away from him.
the Tampa game when I used him against a top 5 run defense, he was absolute dog shit.
He didn't do anything.
And then 2 good matchups, he did really well. Jacksonville, top 10 run defense. I just don't know how much Singletary's going to be there. Like, we could go Kyron Williams, Ramondre Stevenson. We could go Kyron Williams, Jerome Ford. I really like Jerome Ford. Maybe that's just in my head that he's good. Let's see here. 11.9 fantasy points. That's not so good. 14.9. He's not really breaking the bank ever.
He's not. And my one worry about him is ever since they got Kareem Hunt, it's basically a split in the red zone. And I would say that Hunt is the goal line back there. It's kind of like Ford kind of reminds me a little bit of James Cook as like a between the 20s type of runner. But man, you can run on Denver. I know their defense has been a lot better lately, but you can run on this squad, and Cleveland wants to run the football. I would expect him to have 15 plus carries, and that's pretty good at that price point, given the matchup as well.
Like, would you prefer Stevenson, Javonte, Ford, or Warren?
I would go Warren, Stevenson, Javonte.
You know what we could do? This sucks because we lose Kate Otten, but we take Kate Otten out and we use Freiermuth instead.
Yep.
And then we can get Rashad White, who I think we just
I'd
agree
rather
is
do that.
probably a better play.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what are we looking at here between Kate Otten and Pat Freiermuth, right? Like, we're looking at a difference of a couple points, and maybe Pat finds the end zone, right? Maybe Kenny goes to him inside the red zone. It's very possible. So I got Pat in here. And what'd you do with the two? Right? You went Rashad. Who's the other one? Kyron?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. Rashad White. You can even do Rashad White and Derrick Henry.
You could do Derrick Henry if you wanted to, but that doesn't give you enough money to get back up to Otten if you wanted it. You would have to lose Chiefs D down to someone else. And we're using Jalen Hurts in this game. So the lineup is Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith with Khalil Shakir coming back. Then you have Kyron Williams and Rashad White as your running backs. You've punted on Freiermuth, you've punted on Dortch, and you have Chiefs D. I don't think this is a terrible lineup. Maybe it is. This is usually where Tambo comes in and is like, Mayo, you're an idiot, but he's not here, so I can play the shittiest lineups I want.
Yeah, it's not bad. I think Philly will run the ball. I don't mind a Jalen or a Josh Allen. A Josh Allen with a Shakir and
Kincaid,
but it doesn't really make a lot of sense to come back with a running back there and Swift. But I think
that's actually interesting.
I think Allen, what you said is key. Allen's going to chuck the ball a lot in this football game, a lot.
So let's build the Allen side of this then. So we use Josh.
Yeah, let's flip it.
And then we use Shakir.
Yeah,
Shakir, and we use Kincaid. Do you think this is a bigger Gabe Davis game? Or, like, do you just want the two slot guys?
I want the two slot guys.
All right. So
I think,
Kincaid.
yeah, we want the two slot guys.
And then we'll bring it back with A.J. Brown.
Yes. And
then we can kind of fill out.
If you just kept the
We fill everything else out kind of like just how we did. We can go with, let's use Patriots D in this one just to mix it up a little bit. We go Patriots. You know what? Let's do this. Let's go Titans D with Derrick Henry because I think we'll have enough money for this. We'll throw Dortch in to save that money again. So for a running back and a flex play, we have $5,400. That gives us like Ramondre Stevenson and a $5,000 player.
Yeah, if you go Reminder, you got 5-1 at wide receiver. You got London there. Josh Downs is like just a kind of one-off. I think there's more upside with Downs than Douglas.
Okay, let's take Titans D out and throw in Chiefs D.
Yeah, it gives you a little bit more flexibility.
So now we have 5,600 per player if we wanted. So who is in this mid-range at wide receiver that maybe we like? So you have Nico Collins at 64. That's probably the high end of what we can afford. Hopkins, Amare, Ridley, Jacoby Myers, Rashee Rice, Christian Kirk, Cortland Sutton, Gabe Davis, Drake London. Not a lot of great options here.
No, there's these names I don't really care for. I don't mind Collins if you can get up to Nico Collins because Tank Dell may be, even though he is more expensive, I mean, he may be. I think Collins probably gets overlooked a touch. We just miss out on Michael Pittman and Chris Olave. I don't mind Kirk. Kirk's okay because of that fantasy game could be friendly. I don't really want to touch Sutton. I don't want to touch Rice or Jacoby Myers or Amari Cooper. I'm not crazy about this range of wide receivers. I mean, London.
I was trying to see how far we could get up with a running back. I've seen if we could get up to Kamara, but we can't. If we use Justin Watson instead, but we can't.
Instead of Dortch?
No, just use Watson.
Or just to put him in.
Just to put him in, but we can only get up to Barkley. And we have $8,200 and Kamara is $8,400. So we're just like leaving $1,000 on the table at that point, which seems pretty silly. What if we do Demario Douglas? I mean, it seems like all points per dollar wise, it really likes him. So we can throw him in, and then we have $6,800 for a running back. We could get DeAndre Swift and just overload this game.
Yeah, game script could be that way, right? Swift has a couple touchdowns. They run the football, and the one thing about that is like the Eagles do have these long drives. That's why I'm always a little hesitant to go against them, even though the matchups are so good. They do have these long 9-10 play drives where they just kill so much clock. I would maybe go another way.
Kyron?
Yeah. Why not Kyron?
Yeah, we can throw Kyron
in there,
which means we could get back up to 33. So we could use Bengals D, Bucks D, Patriots D, Broncos D, Panthers D. I'm fine with Chiefs D.
Yeah, I like the Chiefs D too.
All right. So there's Josh Allen with his cheaper options. You want to finish off with the Texans and Jacksonville game?
Yeah, what could we do here? I kind of like T-Law, man.
All right.
But if you wanted to get what if we went, so let's just put ETN in as our back. Let's go with the pass catchers. Let's go Stroud. Tank. Do you go Tank and Collins?
Or Schultz?
Schultz has got this is a good matchup for Schultz. So maybe we avoid.
If
you go Stroud, ETN, Tank Dell, and Schultz, you're at 4-5 remaining. You can still spend down on Chiefs.
Yeah, Houston has a pretty bad defense. So let's not forget that. So we could potentially use two Jags. How much is Zay Jones? He's $3,900.
$3,900 is something that I really like.
Like, he's most definitely playing. He's still limited. He doesn't look right, although he was. Let's see here.
He's played 3 games, got 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. So let's throw him in. So let's just do a complete overload here. So Stroud with Dell and Schultz and Zay Jones and ETN on the way back. 2 of the safer options, let's say. And we have the cheaper option to save us some money. Then we go to Chiefs D or Eagles D in this spot.
Yep.
Gets us to 5,300. Let's throw in. It doesn't need to be Dortch in every single lineup. That's just the easy way to build this. Cheap receiver du jour. So Juju, Watson, Dortch, whatever it might be.
Yep.
whoever else
Rotate
that you
through.
like down there. You can rotate through all those guys if this is the way that you want to build to get back up. That gives you 6,300, which means you can be Kyron Williams, Ramondre. That's the spot that we kind of keep landing on. You could go Derrick Henry, Rashad White in this lineup if you wanted to.
And I dig that. I think it's a slight upgrade, man, with Henry and White. And I like Kyron, but I think it's a slight upgrade, and you're saving a little bit of cash, right? So if you went Henry at 6'4", then you got 6'2" for a flex, right? You could go both.
Yeah, you could.
Both guys in there.
You could go Derrick Henry, Rashad White. You could use Derrick Henry and any one of Pacheco, Cook, James Cook, Rashad White, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, who's in this game, but we've already overloaded it. So yeah, let's do that. Let's use Rashad White. Again, you can work at the flex situation and everything like that in terms of timing, but you can get that through. Do you think that's the best way that you can do it? Because I can run this on Run the Sims as well. Let me try that for a second. Let's go to
see what it spits out. I mean, this total's 47. It's the highest one on the slate.
No, but Buffalo and Philly.
48.5.
Buffalo and Philly's the highest. So we'll use the quarterback from Houston with wide receiver and tight end, just two of those. And we use a wide receiver and running back from the Jags. So
From the
it's fine.
Jags.
So Stroud, I want Stroud. And like just this one in particular, we want Dell. Oh, wait, do I have too many here? No, I don't. So I don't like those ones. I'm trying to find the exact one that we had because Robert Woods is still technically in the mix too. If you wanted the cheaper Texans option, because Noah Brown's unlikely to play in this game.
Right.
Let's see, can we get?
Yeah, I would try to stick to Dell, Schultz, or either Nico and Schultz, one of the two.
All right, here it is. Here's the exact one. Stroud with Dell, Zay Jones, Etienne, and Dalton Schultz. So I'm going to throw that in at 100% of my stacks and generate some lineups to see what the optimal likes with it. So the optimal with it, number one, like DeAndre Swift in one of those spots, Demario Douglas, Trey McBride, and Chiefs D. It's not so bad.
Seems like we're onto something.
Like that's the most optimal of
it's
the
not
lineups
bad
with
at
those
all.
five guys.
And I mean, you could also, I like this build better with Stroud as opposed to Trevor Lawrence because I don't know how much of like can Singletary, like you said earlier, can he run on Jacksonville? Will he get targets? Will he get some catches? I think Etienne definitely, we know that he can do that. But if you wanted to go with a Jags heavy stack here, I mean, you could do a lot more because Trevor Lawrence is 6'4". I mean, you're saving $1,300 going from Stroud to Tila, and then you could have Zay Jones as 3.9. You could go Ridley, or maybe you shy away from Ridley off the big game and you go Kirk with those three, and then you could bring it back with a Tank Dell. Maybe you don't even need Singletary. You can just bring it back with a Tank Dell. Or a Nico Collins. I would prefer Tank Dell. So I think that either stack is very appealing in here, and he was still living in this mid-6 range where you can get Henry or Rashad White or Kyron in there as well. I like this build.
It's not terrible. I'd use probably Eagles D just to get some aspect of that game. But yeah, I like even to build it back in with some of the optimals that it's spitting out. Using Jonathan Taylor running back with ETN. And then you can use Demario Douglas and just double tight end. That makes it work pretty easily with Trey McBride at flex and like Eagles D or Cardinals D or a $3,000 defense.
Yeah, I dig it.
See, I don't love it though, because I would rather go off of Taylor down to either Williams or Henry and maybe move McBride up to Taysom Hill or move my defense up a little bit. I think that would be my preferred way to play it.
Yeah, I'm not really there on Taysom, but if you could find a way to get him in.
Maybe not Taysom. Maybe take Demario Douglas out and use Shaheed instead.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a little bit more.
And that gives us a
Just
bit more flexibility. We're back up to Chiefs, Steve.
A little bit of there's a boom there with Shaheed, right?
Yeah, like you're going to get 3 for 12 or 3 for 112. Pick your poison.
Yeah. Give us the latter.
All right. No Michael Thomas in there as well. Thank you again for filling in for Tambo this week. We're going to try to record a little bit earlier next week with Tambo in studio because I'm going away for a few days before I'm back for the live show. There is a live show this week, Sunday Night Live. Me, Cust, and James, the Degenerate 75, will all be on the show together, and I'll have my Saturday update on Mayo Media Network and the podcast feed. So please subscribe, turn on auto downloads, like, everything and go do that. The Listeners League is still open. Meaning, what do you got going on this week? You got Sirius Saturday morning, right?
Yeah, Jake and I will get together tomorrow morning with Lauren Carpenter from 9 to 11 Eastern on channel 87. So we'll walk through, some of our favorite plays and kind of get a grasp on some of these injuries. And every Saturday morning with Jake, and that's really all I got going on the rest of the weekend. We'll have a couple picks and props on our YouTube page for this weekend, but that's pretty much it, man.
Yeah, check that out over at FTN on YouTube as well. Like I said, subscribe to the Mayo Media Network and enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. Smash the like, play in the Listeners League, and sub to the channel on the way out. All right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!